The vet froze the moment he saw them. His hands trembled, the newborns still slick with birth. These aren't normal, he whispered. Moments earlier, a weak stray had been rescued from the streets, her belly swollen, her body cold and fragile. The shelter staff thought they were saving just another abandoned dog. But that night, when she gave birth, something no one could explain happened. Her babies didn't look like puppies. Their eyes opened too soon. Their fur shimmered like metal under the light, and their hearts beat too strong. What the vet discovered next would uncover a secret buried for years, and prove that sometimes the smallest miracles carry the biggest mysteries. Stay till the end. This will leave you breathless. The storm rolled over Willow Creek like a wounded giant, its thunder shaking the old animal shelter to its core. Dr. Harris was about to lock up when the phone rang. A trembling voice on the other end said, "There's a dog. She's barely moving." Minutes later, flashing headlights cut through the rain as a volunteer arrived. Cradling a limp German shepherd wrapped in a soaked blanket, her ribs showed through her matted fur. Her paws were raw, and her breathing was shallow. Yet her eyes, soft and pleading, still held the will to live. Dr. Harris leaned close, whispering, "Hang in there, girl." The shelter staff gathered around as he gently placed her on the table. They named her Grace. Through the long night, Harris monitored her heartbeat, steady but unusually powerful. Her body temperature ran cold, yet her pulse refused to fade. Something about her felt different. When he tried to feed her, she turned away, pressing her muzzle protectively against her swollen belly. Harris sighed, exhaustion heavy in his bones. "You're fighting for more than yourself," he murmured. Outside, lightning flashed against the windows. Inside, Grace stirred weakly. Her journey, and her miracle, had just begun. Midnight crept over the shelter like a hush before a storm. The rain hadn't stopped, and the wind howled through the cracks of the old building. Dr. Harris sat by Grace's side. Exhaustion etched into his face when she suddenly whimpered, a deep, guttural sound that made his heart jolt. The contractions had begun. "She's going into labor," he called, snapping the staff into motion. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Emergency lights bathed the room in a pale red glow as Grace strained. One by one, the pups arrived, tiny, fragile, glistening with life. But when Harris leaned closer, confusion clouded his eyes. Their fur shimmered silver under the emergency light, and their eyes were open. "That's not possible," whispered a nurse. "Newborn puppies can't open their eyes." Grace didn't panic. She looked at her newborns with calm, knowing eyes, as if she had expected this all along. When Harris placed his stethoscope on one of their chests, he froze. Their heartbeats were too strong, too fast, unlike anything he'd ever heard. Before he could speak, one of the pups emitted a faint, metallic sound, not a bark, but a strange hum that echoed softly through the dark. Everyone fell silent. Something extraordinary had just entered the world. The storm had passed, but unease lingered. Dr. Harris hadn't slept a minute. He moved carefully between the kennels, clipboard in hand, stopping by Grace's pen. She looked peaceful now, her puppies nestled against her belly, 6 tiny bodies covered in that same metallic sheen. Harris began the tests. He drew small samples of their blood, noting the unusual glow beneath their skin when exposed to light. Hours later, the lab results came in, and he froze. No canine DNA detected. The screen showed blank data fields, no matches in any veterinary database. "That's impossible," he muttered, tapping the monitor. "Every living thing has a genetic code." Linda, the shelter manager, frowned. Maybe the machine's broken. But Harris wasn't convinced. Under the microscope, he found tiny, uniform metallic particles woven into their fur. "It's not natural," he whispered. "It's engineered." Just then, a knock echoed at the shelter door. A man in a dark suit entered, flashing a badge. "I'm from Animal Research Control," he said. "We've been expecting this litter." Harris felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Expecting?" he repeated. The man smiled thinly. "You found something you shouldn't have." Grace growled softly, eyes blazing with maternal fire. Long after the man in the suit left, the shelter felt different, too quiet, too still. Grace stayed awake, her golden eyes locked on the door, her puppies huddled close beneath her. Dr. Harris couldn't shake the feeling that something dark hovered over them. That night, he made a decision. He had to know the truth. Sneaking into his office, he connected Grace's microchip ID to the National Registry. What popped up on his screen made his blood run cold. Her code didn't link to any adoption record or breeder. Instead, it traced back to a classified government project called Helios. The attached files were locked, marked decommissioned, access denied. But Harris managed to open fragments. Helios had been a military genetics program aimed at creating canines capable of surviving radiation, detecting biochemical threats, and healing faster than nature intended. But the experiments had been shut down after a reported containment failure. Many test subjects, presumed destroyed, had vanished. Grace wasn't a stray. She was an escapee. Harris leaned back, trembling. "You were never just a rescue, were you?" He whispered that he knew what would happen next. The government would come for them. And if they found the puppies, they wouldn't see life. They'd see evidence he had one choice left: protect them at all costs. Rain hammered against the shelter windows like a warning. Dr. Harris stuffed files into a backpack, his hands trembling. "We can't stay here," he said. Linda nodded, already loading Grace and the 6 newborns into a covered crate. The headlights of a van cut through the storm as they sped into the night. For miles, the only sound was the wipers scraping against the glass, until headlights appeared behind them. A black SUV. No license plate. "They found us," Linda whispered. Harris's pulse quickened. The SUV gained fast, its beams slicing through the rain. He swerved down a dirt road toward an old barn and killed the lights. They waited in silence. The storm howled outside. Inside the barn, Grace stood tall over her pups, growling low, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The SUV stopped nearby. Footsteps echoed outside the doors. Then, nothing. Just the sound of wind and thunder. Suddenly, one of the puppies emitted a soft, pulsing glow that filled the barn with silvery light. Harris's breath caught. "They're changing," he murmured. That a crash broke the silence. Grace lunged toward the door with a snarl that shook the rafters. Outside, tires screeched. The SUV peeled away into the night. Grace had protected her family once more, but at a terrible cost. Dawn broke over the valley, soft lights spilling through the cracks of the old barn. Dr. Harris sat in silence, his clothes soaked, his hands shaking. Grace lay beside her puppies, her breathing faint. He knelt beside her, tears welling in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. "You kept them safe." Grace lifted her head one last time, her eyes gentle and knowing. Before they slowly closed, the world seemed to stop. The puppies whimpered softly, curling against her still body, their silver coats glinting like morning frost. Harris buried her beneath a willow tree outside the barn, whispering, "You were never an experiment. You were a mother." Weeks passed. Under Harris's care, the pups grew faster than he could believe. They learned commands instantly, reacted to human emotions, and seemed to understand far more than ordinary animals should. They weren't lab creations anymore. They were living proof that love could rewrite science itself. Months later, a news report flashed across the screen. Pack of mysterious silver-coated dogs rescues a family from a burning house. Harris watched, a faint smile touching his face. "She passed it on," he murmured. "Some miracles," the narrator's voice echoes, "aren't meant to be studied. They're meant to be protected." The camera fades to sunrise, 6 silver shapes running free across the golden fields.